Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Model 2 arcade hardware. As you can see here, I'm just in test mode. There's a couple of settings here to take note of. You're not going to really be able to see this too well in the camera unless I zoom in a little. Maybe I'll do that here. Here we go. You'll see you have your input test. This is very important before you start trying to play this game, because connecting this, as I'll show you in just a minute here, is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. It's not like a JAMA setup unless you get one of those fancy Model 2 to JAMA converters. You'll see I can test all four of my directions, and then there are only 3 buttons in this game: guard, punch, and kick. And the way I have those mapped, as you see here, see if I can get my controller here, I have guard down here, I have punch here, and I have kick here, and then of course start. And as I said, all the directions are just on the little clicky stick here. So if I get out of that by pressing the test button, which I'll show you that in just a minute too. Then another thing is there's a couple of settings you can change in your game settings here. You can change the match count. The only thing I'm kind of annoyed about, you can't change the time. So I believe it's 40 seconds no matter what. One thing to take note of is the country. All that'll do is it'll change the language when it comes to telling you how to do ranking mode. Then you can change display type to projector or CRT. Projector tends to be a bit more dim. CRT tends to be a bit more bright, and I find that having it set to CRT, it's way too bright. And then ranking mode is basically just a mode where you play as long as you can, and then when you lose once, it's over, and basically the game tells you how well you did. So, enough blabbing on about this. I'm going to give you a look at how this crazy monstrosity is hooked up here. I'm going to have to move the tripod and then face it down. As you see on the other screen there, all you were seeing there was the Elgato software. Now I'm going to grab my extra illumination here. Okay, I can actually see this pretty well now. Now the thing I was mentioning here is the test button, which is actually, I don't know if you can see me, which is actually right over here. There's actually 2 little tack switches. Well, they're not tack switches, little buttons. One is test, one is service. And then over here, on top of the Model 2, I just have, of course, my GBS 8200, which is wired into a 5-pin video connector like you'd find on some of the cheaper JAMA harnesses. And then, of course, that videos into the video converter, which goes through HDMI into the GBS. Into the Game Capture HD with its audio, which comes out of a 5-pin. And now, just a quick look over here. This isn't going to make a hell of a lot of sense to most people. It really didn't make all that much sense to me. But here is how Sega Model 2 connects. Now, there are 2. I'll see if I can point them out here. There are. First of all, this one here is the video. It's actually part of the initial D harness. I actually had to hack it up a little bit, make sure I got enough light. The one right above it here is audio. That actually is just a 4-pin that goes 2 pins, positive and negative, into each of the each of the right and left audio. Then we have, let's see, this is power. I'm just trying to look back and forth here because it's harder to see it through the viewfinder. And then the one right above it here, make sure I have enough light so you can actually see. This one's power. And then you're not going to be able to see it, but there is one behind here, which is a longer, I think it's a 25-pin connector, and that's control. That goes down to here. And that actually lets me hook up all the controls for this game, which, as I said, I only have to hook up 3 buttons, which is kind of easy. The good part about when I bought this, which it was an amazing bargain when I got it on KLOV forums, the good thing is all that harness wiring that you saw down there was actually all included with the item. So we're going to go ahead and get out of test mode, and we're just going to get right into this and take a look at Virtua Fighter 2. And as the game starts here, it initializes the sound, and then it's going to tell you not to throw stuff into the trash, you should recycle it, and then here will be your intro. Take a look. And now, considering that this game was actually released in 1994, as you could see in the bottom of the screen there, it's just surprising how good this game truly looks. And you'll see all of your characters are here. The new characters for this game were Shun-Di and Lion, with the returning cast from the original Virtua Fighter game. I'm just going to pick Sarah in her second costume. And now, a lot of people think that Virtua Fighter 2 was the, a debut game for the Sega Model 2 arcade hardware, but unlike what popular belief tells us here, Daytona USA was actually the first game to use the Model 2 hardware, which was actually called the original Model 2, whereas once games like this started to come out, this is what's called the Model 2A software. And then, of course, there was the B and the C, which ran various other games. But Sega Model 1 and Sega Model 3 both had Virtua Fighter 1 and Virtua Fighter 3, respectively, as their launch game. Whereas this was not until they released the more standardized Model 2A hardware that you saw this. Now, just a little bit of background on this hardware, as this is the first piece of hardware from this particular series that I have. The actual hardware is capable of texture mapping technology, which was from military equipment from Lockheed Martin, which is what Yu Suzuki had said, which was formerly the General Electric aerial and space texture mapping technology. It cost $2 million to use this chip by Sega, and it was part of a flight simulation equipment that costed $32 million. And of course, back in 1994, when you were developing a game, spending $2 million on just graphics hardware was crazy. And now, one thing you're going to notice from this game is that if you compare it to the Sega Saturn version, you have your full 3D backgrounds instead of having that weird kind of texturing effect that they did to make the backgrounds kind of look like they were 3D, but it really didn't work all that well. And one big dramatic thing when I first played this was going under the bridge in this Shun-Di stage here is definitely really impressive in my opinion. It just looks really cool. And it's something that no console of the time, not even if you taped a Sega Saturn and a PlayStation together, could you possibly dream of achieving without making the character models look like stick figures. And now the main CPU of this was an Intel i960KB, which ran at 25 megahertz. And it had a sound chip that ran at 12 megahertz, just to kind of get in perspective to what you had here. And of course, the stage you see me fighting Pi here in is the first stage, the actual stage from the intro. And now, this game actually ran 300,000 polygons per second, which was more than 2 times the polygons of the original Virtua Fighter. And now, as far as console ports go, there actually are quite a few console ports, but technically some of them were just re-releases of the same thing. Of course, the most popular one was a year later on December 1st of 1995. you had your Virtua Fighter 2 on Sega Saturn. And then it was 1997, they released Virtua Fighter 2 for Sega Genesis as like a 2D version, which I thought was like the weirdest thing in the world. There was kind of like a port of this to Sony PlayStation in the Sega Ages collection on October 14th of 2004. But from what I understand, it's not nearly as good as, say, this, because it was like some poor emulation, and a lot of people really complained about that. And of course, if you want to go a step further, there was a Mega Drive collection on the PS2 in 2007, which got the Mega Drive version, as well as a PSP version that same year. The Mega Drive Genesis version also hit the Wii Virtual Console that same year. And your personal computer version was September of 1997, which sadly was actually based off of the Sega Saturn version instead of this like amazing Model 2 version, which is really sad when they take like a console version of a game and just port it, which is something that I often complain about with Dead or Alive Ultimate. They took the Sega Saturn version of Dead or Alive and then ported that onto the Xbox instead of taking the amazingly amazing arcade version of Dead or Alive and using that as their port. And now this match here against Jeffrey is the last match that you'll see that it won't do like a jump cut, because this is the last match that I actually won without using a credit. And after this match, if you keep looking at the bottom right corner, you're going to notice the time jumps a lot, because I can honestly tell you, this game seems to have like a rubber band AI, where it's like, you're already losing, but then the game just decides to beat you even more, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, the biggest jump will be when I face the next character in round 7, Kage Muru. I took forever to beat him. I don't know why, it was just like this time. Like, you'll notice at the end it's 3 minutes, 6 seconds, and 71 hundredths. Now, when we go on to the next stage... Oh, my bad, there's one more round here. But getting back to our PC ports, there was that same Classics collection for the PC in 2010, and then a US version in 2011, and they just had the Genesis version, and that's all. You'll see it was only about 3 minutes, and now it went all the way up to 1730, so basically it took me more than, let's see, that's more than 14 minutes of being beaten to death by Kage here until I was actually able to beat him, which I can honestly tell you, it probably goes without saying, like, the whole controller throwing mentality, but it kind of gets frustrating when a character keeps beating you over and over again. And as I said, of all characters, it seems like Kage has the most of that rubber band AI, where it's not bad enough that he's beating you, but he's just going to keep beating you. Now, the strangest oddity, which at the moment of making this video I do not own, is the Tiger R-Zone Virtua Fighter 2 game in 1996, which is more or less one of those like Tiger Electronic games, but it either went over your eye as the headgear, or was like a little handheld. I forget what they called that version. Then there was the Super Screen, which was like an arcade thing that sat on the table. And it actually tells me here that this game was released in November of 1994, to be exact. And you'll see that wasn't as much of a jump. It was like 18 or 19 minutes all the way to 23, so Jackie didn't beat me all that much. But another curiosity is there was the Super Deformed version of Virtua Fighter Kids released in 1996 for the Sega Titan Video Arcade hardware. And basically what that was this game, but all the characters were super deformed. They were considered like quote-unquote kids, but really they were just like people with big heads. And the funny part about that is they even took the intro from this, you know, with everybody doing their moves in the beginning, and actually like translated it to the Virtua Fighter Kids style. And I thought that was like a nice little touch there. And one thing you might be wondering here, the funny part about the way that you do the winning poses, there are, I believe, 4 winning poses. There's one if you hold punch when you're seeing your replay, one if you hold guard, or defense I think it calls it this game, and then one if you hold kick. And then of course the fourth one is when you get a flawless victory, which unfortunately I did not do in this video, but considering it's been quite a while, like, it was, I believe, a little while before the last new pickups video that I had gotten this board. This is the first time I've actually fully gotten through it. And, one of my first tries of getting through it, I literally spent like 20 or 30 minutes just on Akira, and I think it went over 50 minutes on the timer in the bottom right corner. And I was just like, at one point, yeah, I'm giving up. It reminds me a lot of when I was playing Tekken 2, and there were literally 2 or 3 times when I played Tekken 2 that Devil and or Kwazuya just kept beating me, and it just was one of those, yeah, I just can't do this anymore, I have to actually stop. And, yeah, I definitely have to give it to Akira Yuki. Not only, of course, the round 10 difficulty really getting to me here, but it's the, it's that he just has so many moves that he can punish you with. And he just really is good at it. And as I said, my first time playing this, I literally didn't win once or twice.
Better run home to Mama
But now there's one more round here, which is Doral, which I can honestly say, you're seeing it right now, this is the weirdest stage in any fighting game ever. Since you're underwater, I don't know how you don't drown, but everything is like slowed down. What you're seeing is played at full speed, but since it's underwater, I did kind of okay there, but then I kind of just lost it. But as you all know, in my my channel discussion, the only time I've ever beaten Doral was one time when I was playing Virtua Fighter 4 Final Tuned, and like she rang out herself the first time, and then I somehow beat her the second, or it was the other way around. But yeah, this definitely has to go up there with like the strangest fighting game fights, because it's just all in like uber slow motion underwater. And for some reason now it's making me think of all the times Sonic the Hedgehog drowned in Sonic 2. But of course you can't redo that in any Virtua Fighter game, and this is that same kind of here is you beating up the enemy type thing that like some of the Dead or Alive games and some of the Virtua Fighter games have had. And I always think this just looks really cool, especially because they have like the shadow effect on it. It just gives us that extra edge, but it goes without saying, Virtua Fighter 2 arcade version is just amazing. This is a great game if you're into arcade stuff like me. If you have cabinets, or if you like do it all MacGyver like I do, this is definitely a game worth picking up if you see it for a decent price. I would highly recommend it over any of the like cheaply ported or emulated versions. And now, no matter what I did here, I could not figure out how to do this. I kind of, if you see me kind of walking around at the very end, I kind of figured it out at the very end that you kind of use right, left to turn, and then you move back and forth to get to your letters. But you'll see, I'm just completely confused as to how to actually smash my initials. But Virtua Fighter 2 for the arcade is an excellent game. It is very much worth picking up. It is worth going to the arcade to play, even heck, even get a cabinet and just play this game. It's very hard, not as hard as Tekken, but I would highly recommend it. And this has been another Game Nexus arcade video, and I shall see you later. Bye.
Game over.